Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the GothamChess Slow Run. This is a series where I started on an authorized account on chess.com at 400. I'm going up the rating ladder, walking you through my thought process and what you should pay attention to if you would like to achieve certain rating goals in chess. This is episode number 28. Now, those of you that have watched along know that it's been quite some time. We had the Jinxie side arc, or the main arc, where Jinxie got into chess and then won a chess tournament, and that was very fun to cover. And we also had the Candidates tournament, so I didn't really have a chance to get back to the slow run, but by popular demand and also because we're not yet at our goal, we have returned. Now, a lot of you watch the slow run throughout and basically every episode, so I apologize if this is double information. During the Candidates recaps, I talked about this book, okay? Now, a bunch of you have ordered a signed book. You pre-ordered a signed book. It will be available in October. The reason I'm bringing this book up is because this book is designed to get you 1700. And we are right now at 1300, and I will constantly reference what inspired me to write How to Win at Chess Next Level, because it's all going to come up in the games from 1300 up to 1600. Pawn play, piece play, attacking, defending, converting winning positions, and so on and so forth. I don't have a physical copy of the book just yet, so I cannot read to you. But once I do in June, you will really see in live action how relevant this is to people that want to climb the intermediate ranks to get to, the advanced level. My opponent plays d4. I have played many different things, maybe inspired by the Candidates. I can play the Queen's Gambit declined if my opponent plays the Queen's Gambit. We are just going d4, d5. And my opponent plays the move h3, which is not a move, right? So how do you... Oh, there are no clocks. Yep, that's part of the blooper process. I think this is correct. All right, I'm just going to develop. And now what I'll show you is... how to play if the opponent obviously plays some, nonsense, but also really beyond that. So my opponent plays a London. I mean, that was what my opponent was wanting to do. But beyond that, how to play the Queen's Gambit, except we're going to be playing it with black because, well, my opponent went here. The D and C pawns go together. When you have a Queen's pawn game, the E pawn becomes secondary. If, of course, you can put it in the center, that would be fantastic, like here. Like, look, I'm going to go knight to c6, and I'm ready to just take over the center completely with the move e5. If I'm unable to do that, then I do need to win my pawn back, and I will probably play e6. White is worse unless white goes knight f3. So white did not go knight f3, and after e5, two pawns in the center. This is basically the Queen's Gambit, but reversed. Black just now is going to dominate. This is not a terrible move, actually, defending this pawn. Now, the cleanest way forward is for me, obviously, to just push this, make that trade, and then win the pawn. And that's what I'm going to do. But actually, if I just develop the rest of my pieces and castled, we'll look at it after the game. I'll show you. I think black is still going to be better according to the computer because this is a terrible place for a bishop. And in the long run, white will sabotage their own development. But I think this is just very natural. This is already violating some opening principles as a beginner. You're not really, I don't want you all to make the same, just push pawns forward. And also beginners don't know what the Queen's Gambit is, but notice my opponent just went bishop f4, bishop e3, and bishop d2. On the 8th move, black should not have 3-to-1 pieces developed, right? And be castled first. Black has a significant advantage here. It's probably already close to like -1.5, and we'll look at it after. And the reason is white now can only develop like this. If white plays, and that's what my opponent does, which is actually good. Now, if my opponent pushed in the middle with e3, then it would have been really bad news because I would have just smashed this position open. Now, at this point as an intermediate player, you've graduated from those ranks where you're following basic principles only. Here, if I was coaching a beginner, I would say you haven't developed this bishop yet. You haven't, brought the queen up, and you haven't brought the rooks to the middle. But as an intermediate, if you want to get stronger, you have to go past that. And now we will learn things like, okay, how do we take advantage of a king in the middle of the board? How do we prevent our opponent from castling if they have fallen behind in their development? At this point, rook e8, bishop g2, followed by this move d3 looks really convincing. But if white just plays e3, I'm not really sure that we break in with anything. And when we push this pawn, we can't forget we're giving our opponent a developing square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prevent castling like this. When my opponent plays bishop g2 and desperately wants to castle, I am going to play queen to d7. And this move prevents castling because I target that pawn. Now, at this point, white could play the move g4. In fact, white probably should. I'm not really sure what else that they can do. But I'm just showing you how to prevent castling potentially in certain situations. There is something to be said for putting our knight here and trading it off for this bishop, purely on the principles of, well, then I have the bishop pair. Yes. That move I don't like because this is the fourth move of the bishop. And now we have a very easy response, which is just knight e4. Like, we target this and we don't even change anything in the position. Now, of course, I looked at this check. We always have to look at the forcing moves. We also could ignore that and maybe go for knight b4, but generally, when you do stuff like that, white will have sufficient defense. So I don't think there's anything wrong with just putting our knight in the middle. And wow, that is the fifth move. Now there has to be something here. I mean, it would be a travesty if in this position we couldn't do something. I mean, I'm looking at knight sacrifices. Now d3 looks really tasty. e3, then bishop b4 check maybe, or maybe d3, d2. This really feels like now it must be the right move, right? Because we did everything right. I would be shocked if this was wrong. I mean, even bishop b4 on the next move, and maybe white will have to move the king. And white just castles. Wow. Wow, castling in that position, huh? So now if I take this, traditional wisdom tells you two pieces are not as good as the rook. Or, well, it's better to keep them on the board. Like, I shouldn't go knight takes f2. Castles is a crazy move. Knight takes. I might not have a follow-up. Wow. I'm bewildered. Okay. And by the way, there's even a threat here. So I can take this, but they're threatening there. Okay. Let's take this pawn. If we get taken, we don't even take back. We take the rook first. And now with the queen in the middle, you know, I'm gonna put some pressure here on the opponent. Now, rook d1 could be played. But I think rook d1 is quite bad because I can probably take on f2 with check. At a minimum, now we have used our lead in development to not win immediately, but definitely put some attacking pressure on the opponent. Queen c4, is there a threat? The answer is no. That looks free now. Everything seems protected. I think I can take this and comfortably win a pawn, I think. So that should be a pawn for me. That is why we did that. I am also looking at different ways to attack the queen with something like a knight a5, seeing what the queen is targeting, seeing knight jumps, always at this level looking at resources for the opponent. By the way, poor time management for me. If you are actually playing a... What is that? I can take that, right? Or this. Very messy position, so in the interest of time, to teach you good time management, let's keep things very chill here, very simple. Let's trade off, kind of get rid of some of the chaos in the position. When we play this, our bishop is no longer protected. So if the opponent takes on c5, you know, maybe we take on g2. Actually, taking on c5 is just bad, I think. And now, again, we can keep it very easy here. We take this. We don't know if that's the best move the king takes. And now we have to deal with this, right? So I think the most natural move is bishop to b6. I will do something a little more aggressive, simultaneous defense and offense. I think queen f5 is a slightly better move. Queen f5 is certainly not a 1300 level move, but you need to get good at finding stuff like this. And now, you know, my opponent needs a little bit of time. I'm going to go rook to e4, and I'm anticipating queen d3 and a blunder here, or queen c2 and a blunder, pinning my queen to the rook. my rook to the queen, but I actually have a move that would get me out of that. And also, rook e4 is a very timely move because I think I'm threatening to sacrifice. That's not a bad move by the opponent. All right, how about bishop to d4? Rook f4 takes, the queen can come play defense. I like bishop d4 because the queen has to stay defending the b2 pawn or else the rook is going to get trapped. It's a very interesting position. Queen b3 is possible. Then I might sacrifice here. And then I think we're going to be, yep. And now, a little bit instructive here. I'm going to sacrifice this rook to hit the bishop. It's very, very high level stuff. I have to monitor this, but it might not be the end of the world. And now I give this check. Very important move. I'm not just taking the pawn, but I'm threatening. Okay. Wow. Now I can take maybe. I can take this and line up some attack. I can also check first. I can also bring my rook. Maybe I don't have to take anything. Maybe I just bring my rook here. Like rook here, rook up, and that's mate. How about that? Look at that. King's wide open. Rook here or rook here? Which one? Rook d8? I don't know the difference. I don't know. Let's go rook d8. Now, if queen b7, I do feel like my opponent is abandoning the king a little bit. It's a very interesting position. I have just spotted that there is a defensive resource, which was not supposed to happen. My opponent could maybe protect himself, which would be most annoying. Okay, they take on b7, but this, I think, gives me... Can I go here? There is a check on a8, and then I would block with my knight and get my rook here. I also can just play queen f3, queen here, queen f3. Oh, it's like it has to be winning here somehow. But I need to play a little faster. Rook d6 just looks... It just looks like it must win. Rook d... I can actually also start with a check and then play rook d6. Which one is better? Check and then rook d6? That's called an auxiliary idea. That's like, I have an idea, but I'm adding this move to it. If I do that, does that win? I think it does. I'm going to give this check. By the way, if you're scared, you can just make a draw here. Can I play bishop takes f2? King f2, queen h2, that is just... Okay. I mean, this is by far the easiest solution here. And then rook g6. And in the interest of time, that is what I'm going to do. There's f5. It's not over. I can't move my rook there. It's amazing. But then, okay, knight to d8. A very important defensive resource. And now I should win, although this is still in the air, but I will take it. And then I don't think you can protect your king. Very instructive game. Very instructive. Very interesting game. About not developing your pieces and how to attack. I mean, this was an attacking masterclass, really, this one. Very interesting game. Finally getting some super high-level battles here. I'm just attacking white with my piece majority, while the queenside and the castled rook never got into the game. And, this is a defensive... This is attack and defense. This is chapter... I want to say 5 or 6 of the next book. And converting a winning position. Yeah, queen h1's a nice idea, but unfortunately... This is still going to be checkmate. You cannot protect your king. Very, very instructive game. Wow. Very happy with this one. Going to pre-move the... I'm going to pre-move the result there. This is an opponent who's definitely going to think they just played a cheater. I mean, this is really not how a 1300 plays. But hopefully they check the profile. And my opponent abandoned. They didn't even resign. That's very funny. I can't really blame them. Okay. That was extremely high-level stuff, not just complimenting myself, actually by my opponent. Okay, weird opening. This is how you play a queen's gambit. The D and C pawns need to go to the board together. Here, white needs to play knight f3. What's amazing is white is already worse. But after this, white is much worse. Now, I played d4, which was the best move. If I play bishop e7 and bishop e6 and white goes like here, yeah, white is better still. Black is better, sorry. d4 takes. Yeah, and in this position, the most emphatic way forward would have been for me to bring my queen and target this pawn. But that's not even the end of the story. So why this is so strong is that if white offers me a queen trade, I don't take it. Like, you have to understand, the computer tells you queen b6, but it doesn't tell you that after queen b6, you need to go knight to b4. The idea of knight to b4 is to keep attacking the queen and try to get into c2. And if a3, you attack the queen on this move. And when the queen goes back, then you sack the knight like this, because if they take it, bishop f2 is mate. So queen b6 simultaneously threatens the queen side and opens up discovered attack possibilities against this tender f2 pawn as a result of my opponent's poor opening development, right? Fascinating stuff, the way that the computer is so ruthless. Now, in the game, I did this. White needed to play g4 here, didn't. It was actually better, apparently, for me to put the knight here, but I went here, bishop f4, and this move, I completely missed castles, by the way. Completely forgot that it solves a lot of the problems, but I was fortunate that here, black is still minus 2.7, even though the position's equal. Black is so much better because of the development of white and the imminent danger to the white position. Everything in white's position is poorly set up because it took them too long to get settled, and all my soldiers were already ready to go. So I have all the threats, and it was an attacking masterclass because you needed here to understand all the dynamics of the position. Look how important it is to understand the moment is now. You make a couple lazy moves. Do you see how much that... It's -5, and with one move, it's only minus like 1.8 because white just develops. And one more lazy move, white goes here, and if you're lazy and you trade queens, it's 0.9. It's from -5 to 0.9. And the reason is, in this position and in the original position, you are up a pawn. But you should not trade all your pieces because you're up a pawn when the pieces that you have on the board can cultivate an attack. As a beginner, you're taught trade when you're up. But as you get stronger, you add caveats to that. And here, this move activates the queen, and then this move activates the rook, and you get these ideas to sacrifice a rook for a bishop to open up the king. This was a good move, but apparently knight d4 is even stronger to just jump in with the knight because of this. You have, knight e2, and then you can hit the bishop, and this. In the game, I thought what I did was smart. I sacked the rook. We got a rook sacrifice. And now my opponent cannot come protect me with the queen because then I would take the pawn and after the queen trade. So very important. Like here, if you sack the rook and went for this, then white would block. And, sorry, no, not here. If you sack the rook, this wouldn't work. Because if you rushed it, this would be the position. And then if you traded the queens, you would just be losing because you sacked the rook and traded the queen. So do not trade the queen if you're trying to attack. Other than that, I brought the rook. Knight d2 still would have probably resulted in some sort of checkmate. Yeah. And then if queen g3, here you would have had to find bishop e5, which is a very tough move to find. And then the knight is gone. That was an attacking game. That was attacking 101. That was attacking intermediate style. Hope that was instructive. And maybe with white, we'll play a queen's gambit. Or that. Okay. This is one of my openings that I recommend with black, so I can't hate on it. The idea is to then pin here. Now, if you want to play the queen's gambit, I would recommend against this, you play the most annoying thing. As you get stronger at chess, and people play setups against you, you can also play things, right? So the bishop is going to come to b4, so just don't let that happen. And now people are going to malfunction. This is the entire idea of the opening, right? So my opponent plays knight f3. I'm just going to develop, and now black just cannot develop the bishop. This is very annoying. Now here with black, I end up putting the bishop there. But with white, we have a very simple game plan. We're going to develop our dark squared bishop. We're going to develop our light squared bishop. And when we can, we're going to push in the center. That move is actually a pretty significant mistake. Because now you can occupy space. You have to think of your position in terms of space. Now, your knight and queen both guard this pawn, completely block the bishop, completely sabotage the development, block the development of this bishop, and you're ready with e4 and like a bishop move to totally dominate the center. This is not a pleasant position for black. I actually think maybe queen e7 here might be almost necessary to stop me from going e4. But queen e7, yeah, okay, that move makes sense, but now I get the whole center. Maybe now queen e7. But now queen e7 doesn't even work. I'm going to give a check, and I'm going to castle. So those are my next moves. I'm going to develop my bishop, and I'm going to castle. I have no clue what this does. In general, I would say if a move like this happens and has no threat or follow-up, there is no follow-up. This is a horse walking on the side of a road. You can just ignore it. Now giving a check, knight blocks. I'm not sure there's much there. I don't need to give the check. I only wanted to give the check to win time if the opponent attacked me. But I think this is probably the most flexible move. Or this. Careful about moving a bishop here if it can be attacked by pawns. So I don't really see any reason I wouldn't play the bishop to d3. However, there was nothing wrong with h3. You can also just attack the knight and be like, where are you going? And if the knight goes to e5... you can trade. You can trade it. Because then you get a pass pawn. If you can explain to me why you're trading something, even if it's like not completely flawless, so I used to tell this to students all the time when I was a teacher, still am, I guess. But if you can explain to me why you're playing a certain move, I'm just gonna, do this illustration here. Look, I'm trading because I'm getting a pass pawn, right? My pawn is now 3 squares away from queening at all times. Nice. Okay, castle. Now, at this point, what type of position are we in? We're in a closed position. We're in a position we both have 7 pawns. The more pawns you have, the more closed the position is. In a closed position, the stuff that matters the most is obviously the maneuvering of your pieces to their most dominant squares. The play is slower. And who controls the pawn breaks? So in this position, the first move that I see is f4. Because if we trade, I improve the position of my bishop, and this pawn gets mobility. If we don't trade, and my rook is opened. If we don't trade, maybe I can start an attack. So f4 is the first thing that comes to mind, and I'm going to go for it. And this is pawn play. This is chapter 2 of How to Win at Chess Next Level. And this is why that book is so instructive. Another interesting moment there would have been to go queen to h5. Just bringing a queen menacingly toward the king, targeting a pawn. But I like f4 because it's going to simultaneously help me potentially develop 2 pieces. And when this pawn goes forward, pawn play, it activates the bishop diagonal, piece play, chapter 3 of the next book, which is why I think it's perfect for this level. Now, I think black's best move is knight d7. Knight d7 is a very high-level move. It's a move that establishes a knight on a blockading square, which is in chapter 3 of the next book. I'm not just saying all this to promote it, kind of. But I am trying to say, like, I get how you guys think. I know how you think when you're 1300 or 1100 or 800. And I'm trying to get you how to elevate that level of thinking. Knight d7 is probably the best move because should this trade occur, you replace the pawn with a really good knight on a very strong square. A square where it's going to be hard to remove you. A square where you put pressure on my bishop. You don't let me open the center. And so for all those reasons, the knight improves to basically an outpost square. Not quite, because an outpost square you actually cannot be removed from. But in general, black should be looking to establish a piece on the e5 square instead of a pawn. My opponent's deep in the tank, for logical reasons. And it's on the board. Now, they haven't listened to me say all that. I'm not live streaming. So now I'm not going to take. As a beginner, you take, it's fair, blah, blah, blah. I am looking at f5. F5 doesn't allow my opponent to get anything, and I just kind of keep advancing. I'm quite interested in the move queen h5. Or maybe even queen g4, just keeping an eye on the knight. I like queen h5 because it threatens this pawn. And yeah, I think this is just a useful move. I didn't really consider knight to f6 because then I would just take the pawn, but I am a little worried my queen will get trapped with, like, bishop here. Now, here's the $1 million question. Did my opponent get insanely lucky, or have they seen I don't see how my queen gets trapped. Now, sometimes in the slow run, I might blunder something. I don't think this is one of those instances. But anything can happen. Let's take. I can escape. Right, but I can escape to f5 and to g5. And now things look very bad because I'm going to go here. And I think that might have just been a mistake by the opponent. And they will get a couple moves to attack me, like h6, but that was a calculated decision. I don't like queen g3. I kind of generally don't want to be pinning myself. So maybe just queen h4. I didn't go to f5 because I saw the bishop can attack me, which is an important thing that I didn't quite mention. I think I'm totally safe, and e5 just wins the game. It forks the material. e5 wins the game even if the material is not forked. For instance, knight to d7, I can trade queens and play e5, d6, and my pawn barrier is simply going to be too strong. This is a good move. I should continue to get out of danger. I think queen g3 is safe. Right, because again, they were setting up nasty stuff on me with discovered attacks. Knight h5 would be a big mistake. That would be a dopamine move. The rest of these moves were good. They kept the position together. This move would put the knight on an unprotected square, and I would immediately attack it, and then it would have to move, and then my attack would commence. But it's not so easy for me to play the move e5, because this pawn hangs. So now we actually have to win the game. I want to go e5, but I can't because they take on d5. Now, I do have f5. f5 does create some threats. f5 must be the way. This must be the way. I mean, this is a vicious threat. And there's a mate there. So if the king comes to... Am I missing something? There's no checks. I'm scanning for checks. And 2 games in a row, the game will be decided with a kingside attack with a lot of elements of positional play. Pawn play, piece play, pawn breaks. Continuity was there when my opponent blundered the piece, making sure my queen wasn't trapped. This is an interesting move. Basically, if I move my queen off the pin, my bishop gets taken, but I can just play queen g4. Or even queen f3. Just don't go queen h4. Queen f3 and queen g4 both target the knight. One maintains the pin. One thing my opponent could blunder here is the backwards knight retreat, completely forgetting their defending mate. And now e5, f6 are completely vicious because I land in with my bishop and my rook. So this game was really won because of the total blockade in the center. And if you want to attack a person, you can do it with a stick, or you can do it with a locked center. A locked center prevents piece mobility and prevents resources from being transferred from one side of the board to the other. I mean, this bishop is completely out of the game. This bishop is in the game, but is blocking the queen from participating, and the knight is just totally on the edge of the board. So if the opponent ends up going king h7, you will see the fury of this bishop arrive very quickly. g6 looks like it just loses everything. I mean, it loses the rook, or I can take on g6. I mean, everything is losing. Like, I took there because the faster I open the king, the better. Knight to f6. I can play a double check. That's quite nice. Knight f6, double check, king takes, queen h5, can't take because of the pin, king g8, queen g6, king h8, queen g7 mate. That's very nice. So knight f6 here, if you move the king this way, queen g7 is mate. And if you take, that's going to be mate soon. Nice game. Nice game. Very instructive. Showing how you got to win at this level and how it's not simple. It's not simple to win at this level. It's very easy to make strange decisions and not understand, you know, the capabilities of your opponent's pieces and your pieces. Chess at this level can come down to so many small things, like that trade in the middle of the board that I prefaced earlier about, you know, replacing the black pawn with a piece on an outpost-like square. Understanding these things, man, you know, like understanding how the pieces all interact is going to get all of you to, you know, closer to 2,000. This is some serious business. This is not It's not like tailoring, a lot of the content to beginners and stuff like that. Like, it's a serious stuff now. I hope my opponent's not going to stall out the clock. I'm getting a weird sense that that's what's happening, but I'd like to play at least 2 more games, but I wouldn't be stressed if I only had 1. But all of this is in the next book, and I'm very proud of it, I really am. That move will lose at least a knight. At least a knight and a rook. I mean, I can take everything. Let's go double check. Wow. Well, now we get to end the game in style. We don't take the knight, we don't take the rook, but we bring in the bishop. And that shows you piece play and pawn play all together. The light squared bishop got to come alive in the end. And black is losing all of their pieces. The bishop, the knight, the rook, and the king. Instructive. Very instructive game. And you cannot take the bishop, I noticed, because the queen and the bishop coordinate on that square. These types of things like piece visualization, yeah, my opponent's doing a good job not getting mated. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to really matter in the end. Everything wins. I can take the knight. Any of the next moves are mate. And it was instructive how we kind of broke down the house there. But this is hopeless. I think it's mate in 1. I think it's either mate in 1 or mate in 2. I don't think you can survive any longer than 2 moves here. No, maybe 3. You can survive 3. If you try really, really hard here, you can survive 3 moves. Yeah, it's mate in 3 guaranteed, no matter what. Because there's no checks on us, and we are threatening. Right now, bishop takes rook is mate. So the opponent can play rook takes pawn. And that would extend the game by 2 moves. It's a little late, and yeah, rook takes pawn. There it is. Bishop f8, they can move the king. So I take the queen. I mean, I take this. This. And now the only way to not get mated is queen g8, I'm pretty sure. Queen e7. Which, if you find, queen e7, we have a beautiful move that I would like to show you. Very pretty. Of course, you can just trade or take the bishop. But queen e7, we can play bishop g7 check, deflecting the bishop from the defense of the queen. It's never too late to play a really nice tactic. And that is a really nice tactic. And that loses because queen f6, and the only way, and queen g7 is a mate. And for some reason, I have pre-moves disabled. That was another very cool game. Very different than the first one. In the first game, we used the lead in development to hammer at our opponent. In this game, we sacrificed material in that first game. In this game, I showed you how to play an annoying opening, and then the opponent played a very bad pawn move early on, and this pawn structure, in the second chapter of How to Win at Chess Next Level, I talk about pawn structures that emerge from openings and how to understand them, and I talk about, well, everything we had in this game. Like, this trade, for example. This trade improved my structure because it gave me a passed pawn. Now that pawn in all endgames will be a potential problem. And here, the best move was not f4. There was a lot of different moves. No, actually, it wasn't the best move, but it was a good move. And now both good moves by the opponent were knight d7 or bishop d6 or bishop f6, trying to get me to take and then to establish a piece. Now look, it's 1.3. If you take, it's 2.4. And if you continue to play some slow moves, it's 3. White has a 3-point advantage because you completely dominate the center. Queen, knight transfers over, blockaded position for black, can't break through this. This is vicious. This is vicious when you need it. And yeah, this was a good move. And now the computer likes f5. It does like sealing the position, taking space away from the opponent, and then building behind that. I thought queen h5 was an instructive move. It is to put pressure on the middle. I was expecting g6, and then here I would have crawled forward and kind of showed you how to play this position, although the best move apparently is retreating which is fascinating. Just baiting the opponent into playing a pawn move in front of their king. This is a mistake. And then this queen chase was bad. This move was too slow, not understanding the danger, and this was a blunder. And actually, that wasn't even the best move. Apparently, this is the best move. Because if this is even more vicious. So that was a game that featured all of those concepts that I talked about. Let's play another one. We already played d4. Let's play e4. It's been a minute since we played something like this. Maybe now I show you the power of the Vienna opening. This is an opening that I have, made a career on. Knight c3, bishop c5 played by the opponent. Bishop c5, I don't exactly remember what to do against, actually. It's a very peculiar move order. You can play knight f3 and turn the game back into a scotch, but if knight f3, there is knight c6. You can play bishop c4, hoping for the copycat variation. You can also, I think, play queen g4 immediately, going for the g7 pawn. I'm going to play like this, and if the opponent plays a copycat variation, I'm going to show you the power of the copycat variation. But I don't think they're going to copy me. Yeah, they play knight to f6. So now d3. And we will try to play for kingside attacking ideas that exist in the Vienna opening with f4 as the next move. Now, I'll be very fascinated if the opponent knows, if the opponent knows about various ways to kind of counterattack here. That will be quite interesting to me. In general, in the Vienna, this pawn wall, as we just saw, f4, f5, in the previous game, this is a nice way to create an attack against somebody, because you see how you get all of this activity, the bishop can't come out. Now, the way black should play is immediate counterattack. So when you are being sealed off like this, and the opponent is kind of taking a lot of liberties, which I am, you want to counterattack. The way my opponent is counterattacking isn't the best way, because they're not attacking in the middle, and they're not counterattacking at all. Actually, they're just making moves. So I kind of want to bring my queen over here and maybe put my king there and just launch a bunch of pawns. I also want to develop my knight to a normal square. I also kind of want to develop my knight to that square. So what do I do? All right, let's be super hyper aggressive. Let's save that square for the knight. The bishop goes, I actually could put it on d5. That wouldn't hurt anybody. Or I can just kind of drop it back here, maintain this pressure. It's a good move. My opponent is playing very reasonably, and maybe something like knight to e2. So both of us have developed a bunch of pieces. I obviously have some pressure on the king. Wow, c6 is now feels really ugly because you blocked your bishop. And now I feel like I can maybe start some shenanigans on the king. I am not feeling like, like d5 now. Okay, part of me just wants to calculate taking, but you should understand there is nothing behind this now because the bishop is blocked. If I take, I open up the bishop, but I mean, I kind of just like this for me, no? Like, if you take, I can even get my knight involved. Maybe the bishop can go back and play defense. Maybe that's the most prudent way to deal with this position. Because I don't have good intentions here for my opponent. And that's what they do. I mean, hey, you gotta give some props. I can now chop this down. I'm thinking to chop it down with the knight, though. Because I feel like I should maybe save my bishop. The most aggressive way to play this position would be with my h and g pawns. So why don't I back up? This is crazy. This is getting real crazy now. And then I'm going to bring the pawn avalanche. So I'm keeping my king in the middle. But what is making this possible is that, well, I could castle. I could. Before I couldn't because of the bishop. What is making this possible is the center is so locked. Knight c5, interesting move. Okay. This could be an idea. If I go here, I get forked. That is tragic. If I attack the knight, is my opponent going to take my bishop? Is that the idea? So if I play queen f2, Again, taking is always an option, but a little risky. One thing about this position also is bishop h4 pins my queen to my king. I'm glossing over it mentally because I always have pawn to g3. But if the pawn was on g4, you absolutely must spot this. You have to. Now, okay, positions clearing up. We have traded some pieces. Oh, man, big decision now. Do I take with the knight or with the pawn? I like taking with the knight. I like that pressure on the bishop. And I also like that c5 is just not possible. And yet, I think it's the best move. I think you need to sacrifice this pawn because it activates your bishop to such a degree. I actually think it's necessary. I think the computer would play the move c5, which is fascinating stuff, just from what I know about chess. Okay, we've addressed this. Of course, I'm going to block. This is a huge waste of time for black. I don't like this at all. And now a big moment. A big, big moment here. How do I break into my opponent's position? Now, c5 I know is still there. f6 I would love if I could play. I can. I do see a very peculiar way for me to pull this off. I can start with bishop to a5, which is an insane move, but it stops the queen from guarding f6. And on the next move, I can play that move. Pawn break into the position, but it's very double-edged, very complicated because, you know, I'd be opening the king, but I'm kind of going a little ballistic there. Maybe the opponent's going to trade queens with me. That would be the best decision, I think, for black. Like, hey, this guy's trying to attack me. Maybe we swap the queens off the board, and then it becomes an endgame. And then it becomes a positional game of chess, like one where it's not so simple to exploit certain attacking ideas and so on. And they do it. Wow. Wow. I'm pretty impressed. I have to say. That is impressive. Okay, let's trade. Now we will learn how to play a middle/endgame at the intermediate level. We need to prevent the opponent from playing the move c5. Right? What's funny is we can't. We actually can't because we're pinned. So we lack a lot of defensive ability here. But we actually can castle, which is cool. And still the move f6 is a problem for black, as it would really ruin the position for the king. So f6 now is totally possible. And it will cause some damage. So now we're going to get an opposite color position, opposite color bishop position, where we have attacking chances and they have some attacking chances. So we take with a knight, but black's got a very good bishop. This is not a bad bishop at all. So rook takes f6. Now black should bring a rook to our second rank. I think that is probably the best way to play the position. We're going to double up the rooks to defend ourselves here. Nothing insane. And next, we're going to go after these pawns. Now, again, black should get a rook to our second rank, and they are not sensing, because they don't know. They're not that strong. That's completely normal, but they are not sensing the moment. And the moment calls for immediate piece coordination against the enemy king. So when black plays rook c8 defending this pawn, I'm probably going to play b4, which pokes at the pawn structure. And I'm going to get my bishop to the middle where it's going to immediately target this king and create some serious problems. But the game is still going on. I mean, the game is afoot, as they say. It is not easy whatsoever here, this position. But we are going to try to outmaneuver the opponent. But still, I think the most impactful way to play would have been to put a rook on my second rank. And that is how you are supposed to use your rooks. Still, black has not done much wrong. Okay, never mind. Black just did something really terrible. That's a really bad move for many reasons. First of all, I don't even have to take this. I could maybe even play bishop c5. But okay, bishop takes d4, and now there might be a big problem for this king. And on top of that, a6 is hanging. The next order of business for me is going to be preventing counterplay. Oh no, I'm just completely winning. I just realized I am completely winning. I am completely winning. What? They're just letting me have a discovered attack? This just loses. I think I just have rook takes f7. Right? This is just a double check with my rook and my bishop. This is... So my opponent lost this endgame in 5 moves. And endgames are covered in the next book, which is... This is a practical endgame. This is just game over. Rook g7. And this is mate. Any rook move for me is now mate. Out of nowhere, we just won. The endgame started on move 24? No, it started move 23. Technically, it started move 20. 10 moves, and the game is over. We win. Very instructive rook and bishop swarming of the king. Opposite colored bishops benefit the attacking player. And the game is over. The game is over. That is mate. I think I want to end on that game because I think there was a lot to analyze there. So you can learn... I mean, that was a very interesting game. First of all, in the opening, I didn't really play principled. I mean, I kind of tried to show you what happens if you play really aggressive. And this is certainly a way to play. One of the lines of the Vienna goes like this. Black should immediately counterattack in the middle. When somebody is trying to seal you off like this on the flank with your pawns, you should go to battle. A6 is too slow. And then I played bishop g5. I could have played other moves. Knight d7, queen f3, brought my queen. Yeah, the computer likes bishop d5 instead of bishop back. Mostly because I would be preventing this bishop from easy access. But this position is already close to equal. c6 is an ugly move, but not even that bad. My opponent played very well in the opening. The bishop retreat to counter the pin was excellent. And here, the computer wants h4 to give up a pawn like this, but open up the rook. Very instructive. But there's not enough. It still thinks the position's equal. And when I went back, knight c5 was a major problem. I was actually slightly concerned here. So in this position, there is something floating around, okay? Like I'm going to show you here. There is an idea floating around here that some of you might have noticed if you were closely watching the game, that black can play the move a5 at any moment. The problem with the move a5 to try to trap my bishop is that I'm not an idiot, and I will play a4. And then black will have to do something with this b-pawn, and then the game will go on. The problem is, if you want to push this a-pawn and prevent the a-pawn from moving, because remember, I want to take the bishop with the a-pawn if there's a trade, is you need to put a knight on c5. And if you put a knight on c5, then after a5, white is in severe danger. Because a4 will lead to this, this, and something like this. And this is terrible. Here my pawns are completely useless. And black can even, like, you know, take and c5 and lock me in. So I was worried about that, but then my opponent rushed the trade and then rushed this trade. You shouldn't release the tension so easily if there is no reason, you know, but okay. And yep, I was correct. Yep. So the position is equal if and only if black plays c5 right now. Because if black plays c5 and I take it, bishop h4 now is really strong. I cannot go here because I would lose my rook for the bishop. So very instructive, c5. Here, bishop a5 was okay, but the computer wants me to go f6. And the point after f6 is that then I play bishop to a5, and then I take, because if this, I would go take, take. Oh no, I would trade the queen. This is very tough to understand. In a nutshell, the computer likes the opposite colored bishop endgame, but it prefers to keep this bishop passive, and it wants to damage the pawn structure. And here, the black bishop is not passive. It is alive and very strong. And we see in this position that even here, the best move for black, according to the computer, is rook ae8 to try to get the rook activated to the second rank. Black didn't do that. Already, I'm better. It's still the best move, but now I'm going to be bringing my bishop to come help. And after bishop d5, how fast, folks, did it go from equal to completely lost for black? That is incredibly instructive, how an endgame can be so dangerous. And in general, what I would say here is, this is a general rule of thumb in an opposite colored bishop endgame. Don't put the king out in the open on a same color square as the opponent's bishop. It's gonna be bad news. You're gonna be susceptible to a tactic somewhere. With the king on g8, black's position is great. And if black can achieve, not this because it's illegal, but if black can achieve something like this, black is going to be happy. And in this position, if black got the rook to the second rank like this, I mean, I would have had to trade pieces, and then black would have brought the second rook. And then this is probably just heading for a draw, because black is creating some serious problems here for me. So, I mean, if I drew a 1200, you know, they obviously could have pulled off the best game ever, and I would have been definitely underperforming. But I sometimes deliberately go into these positions where I know I shouldn't have anything, but I know that at 1300, I'll still find a way to win. I hope you enjoyed. This was a very high-level episode. And yeah, the chess keeps improving and improving. If you're lucky, folks, and this signed copy in the United States from Strand has not sold out yet, there's like anywhere from 100 to 50 to 100 left. They reopened it. And I'm going to be signing 10 of these with like custom special messages just for fun. So you might get one of the rarer books. We've had a lot of demand for the UK. We're working on it with Waterstones. Canada, we're working on it. If you're from another country, don't pay $40 shipping to get the signature. But if you really want to, you can, but it's a lot more money, and I don't recommend it. And just like the first book, see all those books, it's translated into a bunch of different languages. I hope to do that as well. I'm very excited. I worked very hard on it. And all of these concepts come up. Endgames, attack, defense, converting winning positions, pawn play, piece play. We're going to be seeing it for the next 20, 30 episodes. And can't wait. Can't wait to get all of you to 2000 and beyond. And you know the drill at this point. Get out of here.